shit starts paying my bills.
Jacob, we are live. Jacob, that was really funny, but we're live. All right. You guys already know the drill. Welcome to the breaking news section. We got Raylan again, and we got Jacob again. This time I'm actually here. I'm not saving my voice for our show. Carson Wentz traded to, I guess now we have to call them the Commanders. We can't call them the Washington football team anymore. They actually have a name.
God.
Gents, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing? How you doing, Ray?
I'm good, man. We here again for the third time in 24 hours.
Hey, that's what we got to do.
Hey, it's a family now.
Hey, this is always a family. All right, real quick before we get into it, I'll just read off for anybody that hasn't seen it yet the official trade that is going through. So the Colts are going to get a 2022 third rounder and a 23 third round pick, and that becomes a second if Carson Wentz plays 70%. And then also a 2022 second round pick. Commanders are going to get Wentz and a 22 second round pick. And I believe, if I remember correctly, I think I saw that the Commanders are paying his full salary for this upcoming season. So apparently everybody's just going to keep unloading that contract on other teams with Carson Wentz. Just we don't want the bad contract, but here you go. We don't want the bad contract, but here you go. They're just going to keep doing that. No one's ever going to pay him, I swear.
Yeah. No, here's the thing. The Commanders, they remember about a year or two ago when they loved Heineke so much because of the playoff game?
Yep.
It's just like a 2-year-old with a shiny new toy. The fans are, everybody's like, it's a shiny new toy. We want something else. Okay, so they went to go get basically, it's kind of like the 1995 version of Moses Malone. It's like they know the name. So even though he scored 2 points a game in his final year, they know the name. So, hey, let's go get him. He's a star. No.
They got all excited.
Yeah, but the thing is, the more injuries that he's gotten and the more sacks he's taken and more everything, he's just chipped away at his confidence. He's not going to get it back. And now that he's got the human speed hump on the left-hand side, Charles Leno, it's just going to get worse and worse. And those are and Charles Leno, we dealt with him for 7 years in Chicago. I mean, he is I don't call him speed bump because speed bumps do damage to your car. Speed hump. He's just in the way.
Just enough to slow you down, just a little bit.
Just enough to slow you a little bit.
Yeah.
He's a human speed hump. And it's like, and then with that on the left-hand side, the guy is going to get killed. Yeah. And then you see that, you just wait till you see that confidence now.
I mean, the way I see it is Carson Wentz from the Eagles got hurt, offensive line broke down, things happen. He moves to the Colts where he's got one of the best offensive lines in football, and he still plays the same. Now he's going to Washington. I don't know what Washington thinks they're going to get out of him anymore. I don't. They don't have an offensive line like the Colts had, at least, where at least the Colts can protect the guy. Washington can't do that. So I don't understand what they're thinking, that he's going to magically improve and all of a sudden be this fantastic quarterback. I don't know what they're expecting.
Shiny new toy. We brought that. It's just that's what 2-year-olds look for. Shiny new toy. Throw it away in 2 weeks. Get something else.
Yeah, but still.
I mean, it's a name. It is a name. I mean, Taylor Heineke was the shiny new name when he had a good playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Haney was once the shiny new name for the Bears when he almost came back against the Packers. Way back when. That's 10 years ago. He was shiny, and then he never won a game.
It's not even a cool shiny new toy, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
I almost hate the Moses Malone reference because Moses Malone was a 3-time MVP. Carson Wentz has done nothing in this league for him to be coveted the way that people are talking about him.
Hold on, real quick.
To even be like breaking
Mr. Cartenuto, where are you? You can get on this if you want to join in. I invite you currently to get on, my good man. I mean,
I ordered some Carrington noodle for lunch today.
He has the link as well. But
I know he does.
He
does.
Hey, Ray. Hey, Ray, I wanted to bring this. I'm not trying to I know how great Moses was. You know what I mean? I know how great he was, so it wasn't an insult to him. I just remember when he stayed well past his prime because he had to keep making the money. And then he got the 2 points in the final year. I get your point, though.
We see that with that's kind of like the Akeem Olajuwon in Toronto and Patrick Ewing in Seattle, right? Like, we've seen this with athletes time after time, but this is like, at least those guys had accomplished something, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Carson Wentz, the hype surrounding his name. I don't get this. a huge lateral move for Washington, right?
He's got what, one season? He's got
lateral.
One really good season.
Lateral move, huh? That's what we're calling this, a lateral move. Okay.
You think they got better?
I think it's a lateral. It goes 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
I think Eric is trying to say it's a downgrade, actually.
So, I mean, obviously, Philly fans have a whole different take on Carson Wentz, right?
I'm so happy Eric is here for this because I wanted to hear Mr. Philly himself, his thoughts.
I don't see this as a lateral move. I would have stuck with Tyler Heineke if you asked me. I mean, the brother has shown at different points, and when his back's against the wall, he makes moves. But apparently Ron Rivera saw something in Carson that he decided to take a flyer on him. Listen, you want to come back to the NFC East, to arguably the third or fourth team in that division, and try to resurge your career? Hey, far be it from me to argue. You clearly know what's important to you, but
Eric,
go ahead.
Eric, this is a lateral move, all right. It's a Nagy lateral that loses about 4 yards.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I mean, I don't understand the reasoning behind it. But again, Carson knows Carson, and his agent, clearly Jim Irsay, was not happy. I think we knew the writing was on the wall after the Jacksonville loss, because you had to win that game to get in. And Irsay doesn't want to waste the talented defense that he has, nor does he want to waste Jonathan Taylor's career. So, but I think that begs to ask the question. I don't know if you gentlemen have touched on it yet, but what does this mean for Indy now?
That's the question. Do you think it's Jacob Eason?
No.
I don't know. There's not enough
so.
tape on him for me to say, yes, he's the guy. And there's nothing in this draft class that says take a flyer on a young quarterback.
Right.
The coach
Jimmy
just put themselves in the same boat. The coach just put themselves in the same boat as all these teams we've been talking about all offseason, right? We've been talking about Pittsburgh. We were talking about Denver. They went and got their guy. Now the Colts are that team where you look at them and go, the defense is solid. They have Michael Pittman on the outside. You have Jonathan Taylor, who looked like the best running back in football last year. And now you just don't have a quarterback.
You basically put yourself in the same position as teams like you said, Pittsburgh, even Washington. You basically swap places with Washington, right? A team that needed a quarterback. That's what they were looking for. Well, guess what? You just gave away yours. Now, I understand why you did, but I don't know that they have a backup plan. I look at this and I feel like they just said, no, we're just gonna get rid of our quarterback. I just want to offload this guy to somebody else. We'll figure out the rest later.
But you know what all this is, though, right, Eric? If you go back to the first live yesterday, not even the live, our Monday night show, we talked about the domino effect, right?
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers signed. The biggest name that people thought was available said, I'm going to stay put. And now everybody's scrambling in panic mode, trying to find a guy to at least fill the void. And then Denver went and took the next best guy off the board. So now teams are in panic mode. Coach just left himself without a quarterback, but this guy's available. Jimmy G might find himself available. Teddy Bridgewater might be available now. Who knows? So, they'll find somebody to plug the hole. But my biggest thing for Washington is you saw a guy who was playing well, went out of the lineup, and his team got better and won a Super Bowl. Then he went to another team and got to the last game of the season after his running back carried him all year. They bottled his running back up, and for one game, we needed you to show up and beat the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars to get us in the playoffs. And you couldn't do it, and you looked at that and said, that's who I want.
And not even in hero ball. Not even in hero ball. He was horrible.
Yeah, when teams are bad all game, and they go to the 2 minute drill, you go, man, they should have did that all game. There was no point where you looked at Carson Wentz and went, oh, yeah, they could have did. No, there was never a moment where you went, I don't get it. I don't get why anybody wants Carson Wentz.
So Matt
maybe his wife's hot, and he just want to see her.
So Matt in the chat is basically saying that the Colts will be in on Winston or Jimmy G. But we haven't talked about Jameis Winston. And listen, I know there's a limited amount of New Orleans tape on him, but we know what he was between Florida State and Tampa Bay. Does Jameis, I want to ask this question to y'all, does Jameis Winston, does he get his shot maybe in Indy?
Well, bring in Bichota, bring a thing to Bichota. He proved me wrong on something. I mean, before he got hurt, Jameis improved. He improved away from Tampa.
Okay.
That was the thing. He improved away from there and he got hurt. So it's like, really, when he was at Tampa with Bayern Deathwish, when he was with them, the biggest thing was he was very dynamic, very, touchdown, but he also threw horrible picks. It was like a gunslinger.
30 for 30.
He took his 30 for 30. You're right. He took his when he went over there. I did not have any belief in Jameis after that, but then they worked. I mean, Sean Payton worked with him. He looks better. He's making better decisions.
He did look better.
I mean, it could work.
Jameis's biggest problem in in New Orleans last year was his completion percentage was significantly down. I mean, he was down to 59% on the completion percentage, which is simply not good. The one thing I said with Jameis, and I think I said it on one of our shows really early season, the one thing he was good at being was consistent in terms of, scoring touchdowns. That was it. That was the only thing I saw that really truly carried over, right? The man scores touchdowns. His interceptions went down, which is great, but his completion percentage went down. And I wasn't like thoroughly impressed with him. I was like, yeah, he's doing all right, right? He's not terrible. And so does he get his chance in Indy? I think there's a chance. And I think one of the things that could benefit in Indy for him would be the fact that a strong offensive line, that'll build confidence in any player, especially a guy that just got a serious injury, right? He's coming back from these tears. What is the biggest thing he probably needs? He needs protection. He needs to know he's safe. So if they give him a shot in Indy, I think he's got a chance. I think he could be – I think his potential upside is probably one of the best of the available quarterbacks currently. I think Jimmy G, we've seen his upside. It's okay, but he doesn't wow me. He's okay. But he's just another quarterback to me. Jameis, I do feel like still's got that upside. I mean, his accuracy went down, yes, but he can fix that. And I think part of that would be fixed offensive line, right? A good offensive line. He can be more accurate. He's got more time in the pocket. He can be more poised and composed. I do think there's a chance. I'm not sure how big the chance is, just because I know New Orleans is pretty. It seems like New Orleans is pretty heavy into Jameis, but there's a chance.
Well, the biggest thing the biggest issue is the fact that you got to get one or the other, and you have one or the other. You either have the dynamic 30 for 30, as brought up by Eric, the dynamic 30 for 30 with high percentage, high completion percentage, or the one with lower completion percentage but better decisions. But the thing is, you can't win with either thing. With completely dynamic, hold on, sorry, you can't win with either. Sorry about that. You can't win with like overly dynamic and bound to make mistakes, and you can't win with being overly safe. You got to pick both. You actually combine them both and be able to figure it out.
So somebody in the comment section said Indy just needs a game manager, right? And I don't think they can win with that, right? If we look at game managers that have been successful in the past, very successful, right? You have to have an elite defense. Like you have to have an elite defense and an elite running game. Yep. And the Colts are a middle of the pack defensive team. It's like their defense doesn't scare anybody. So what will happen is you'll get to the playoffs for this, or you'll get to a huge game. And at some point you'll need that game manager to win a game, like week 17 versus the Jaguars. So I don't think they can just plug in any old quarterback and think, hey, we're going to hand it to Jonathan Taylor 35 times a game, and that's how we're going to win, because their defense isn't that good for them to do that.
Oh, no, but absolutely. And it's like, it is absolutely. The one big thing about that, too, is they said, we just need a game manager. Here's the problem, though, is we had this whole thought process with Derrick Henry. It's like, how great was it with Tannehill? And then he got hurt. Then Tannehill found out what he was when there was no Henry. This is what can happen. What if Jonathan Taylor gets hurt?
Yeah.
You're right.
Facts.
Now, I would just like to say that Derrick Henry got hurt and Tennessee still had the number one record in the AFC.
True, but Tannehill wasn't the same.
But they didn't make it to the Super Bowl. The expectation without, I mean, look, let's take that. You want to break it down? Let's take that. Let's take last season. The king goes down. All right. And Derrick Henry still finds a way to maintain and finish with the number one seed based on how things fell. He faced the number one seed in the entire AFC, above Patrick Mahomes, above Joe Burrow, above Justin Herbert, above Lamar Jackson, above all the names that we would put ahead of him from a quarterback standpoint. And that was without Derrick Henry. All right. So then Derrick Henry comes back, which means by all stretch of the imagination, Tennessee should be the team going to the Super Bowl. They should be on their way to SoFi Stadium. Only one team gets a bye. Only one. And it was, in fact, Tennessee, giving Derrick Henry another week. You sacked Joe Burrow 9 times. Your defense, not Ryan Tannehill, not Julio Jones, not Derrick Henry. Your defense sacks Joe Burrow 9 times, and he still finds a way to get it done. He still finds a way to beat you. And you're the number 1 seed?
Well,
listen.
I mean, yes, we all saw that happen, and Tannehill played awful, right? But when the game mattered the most, who was the one person that didn't come through like we thought they would in that game?
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry. 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, something like that. And he gets the ball and he hesitates. And we all went, what?
Yeah. No, you're right.
So,
you're
yeah,
right.
I mean, no, I don't think any of us ever thought Tannehill was a world beater, right? Like, none of us ever.
No,
like,
but to Matt's point, he is a game manager because he did what he had to do to survive. It did not ultimately work in his favor at the end because the playoffs, as we all say, are a different animal. But Ryan Tannehill has proven he can be a game manager. He doesn't throw you in games or doesn't throw you out of games. He does just enough to where your team, at the end of the day, the Tennessee Titans, would be successful. So
he threw him out. He threw him out of the last playoff game against the
playoffs.
Bengals.
I'm not talking playoffs. Playoffs are a different animal. Playoffs are a different animal. And we put a lot of that, again, we put a lot of it on Derrick Henry because Derrick Henry never stutter steps. He doesn't tap dance. Derrick Henry is a bull in 3 China shops, and he'll blast through all 3 of them. The fact that he stutter stepped in that playoff game says to, I think, all of us here, he wasn't fully prepared to come back. I expect him to resurge himself this season. But again, you have him, you have Julio, you have AJ Brown. You know what I mean? You have weapons, Ryan. Just don't shoot us in the foot. That's all I'm saying.
It's fair.
Yep.
And that's, I think, to Eric's point, that's exactly what could happen in Indy if they go for the just game manager route. And that's kind of, for me at least, that would be my concern.
Yeah, Jake, the biggest thing I'm going to say with this is any of the ones that are left right now, I think beat Jacksonville. Any of the ones they go to the playoffs with, any of them, they beat Jacksonville. I mean, that was literally the biggest gimme game of life. And it was not only did they lose, but you didn't feel like that there was any chance at all.
Well, that's one of those things, though, right? Where, like if you look at the Rams, top to bottom, talent-wise, and then you look at San Francisco, you go, the Rams are a much better team, right? Sometimes a team just has your number. Before that playoff game, the Rams were 0 for their last 6 against San Francisco, and it's like, you're a better team, but that team has their number. Well, that's what it is with the Colts in Jacksonville. There's some weird stat where they haven't won in Jacksonville in
it's been a while. Yeah,
a long time, right? Like sometimes a team just has your number. But as far as this game man, this idea of winning with a game manager, right? Even some of the greatest quarterbacks we've seen in our lifetime have won that way. Like Tom Brady's first couple was like that. Ben Roethlisberger won as a game manager. Russell Wilson won as a game manager. Peyton Manning's last Super Bowl, he was a game manager. But one thing all those teams had in common were they had all-time great defenses. Like if we recall, like that Denver team when Peyton Manning was a shell of himself, they took the MVP, Cam Newton, and made him look like extremely mediocre, right? We saw what those early Patriots defense was like. So when people think like, oh, we got a good running game, we can just plug a game manager, the only time you see people have success with a game managing quarterback, the defense has to play at an unbelievable level, like the 85 Bears, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that won with who was it, Brad Johnson? No, Trent Dilfer with Baltimore, right? Like you have to have an elite, stout, phenomenal defense to just throw a game manager out and go.
And you don't feel that Indy's defense is on that level?
No.
Okay.
Like they're a middle of the pack defense. They're good. They're not that great where you can say our quarterback doesn't have to do anything for us to win. I don't think they're that good. And I mean, y'all talking about offensive line. Any quarterback you drop there should instantly should be more confident playing behind Quentin Nelson, right? Like you're going to Indy, you get to play behind a guy who's arguably since the day he walked in the league, right?
Yep. One of the best.
Been like that.
Yep.
So I don't know, man.
Yeah, no. And you know what? We talk about that Jacksonville game, and I was curious. I think part of the reason that we can say they lost, which kind of is flying under the radar, I looked at Carson Wentz throughout the season. He really wasn't anything special. Like in terms of his passing yards, he really didn't break 200 that often. So that game was, in terms of yardage, just speaking about that, it was actually pretty consistent for him. Being near 200 yards was sadly relatively consistent for Carson Wentz. I mean, if he broke 200, he was not really getting above like 220-ish. The thing for me was Jonathan Taylor only ran for 77 yards. And I know I say only, but anytime Taylor ran for over 100 yards, they only lost one time, I believe. One time.
That was my time. I beat that drum all last year, right?
Yeah. And that was the week before at Vegas was the only time they lost when he ran for over 100 yards. I guarantee you that Jonathan Taylor, who runs over 100 yards, game's completely different.
They won. I mean, that's not even what I mean. Giving love to Jonathan Taylor. That's just facts.
Right.
If
and that's
Jonathan
what I mean.
Taylor runs over 100 yards,
you might as well just guarantee a win. Right. Except there was 1 week that didn't happen. Right.
This is why that's such a big indictment on Carson Wentz, though, right? So if you, again, and Eric will tell you, I kept talking about that I would bring that up every other show.
Yep.
Man, y'all realize the Colts are undefeated when Jonathan Taylor rushes for 100 yards. Y'all realize they've lost every game he didn't. Like it was crazy, right? So then you get to the last game of the season, winning you're in, you control your own fate. If we know it, we some regular dudes. We ain't on CBS. We ain't on Fox. We ain't on ESPN. We some regular guys who love covering these sports, right? And we knew that the Colts were very good when Jonathan Taylor rushes for 100. So you don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars knew? They knew coming into the game, our best bet to win this game is to stop that guy, right? Carson Wentz had to know it too. This is your one, what they say during March Madness, one shining moment. This is your time to shine, right? You were on your way to an MVP season, got hurt. This is your time to show people, oh, y'all forgot how good I was. You forgot that I was you went number one, right? Number one, golf went two, right? You forgot I was a highly touted quarterback coming out of college. I'm super talented. You're going to stack 8 in the box and stop that guy? Watch what I do. And then he couldn't do it.
Right.
Like, that's a big indictment on him that the whole world knew Jonathan Taylor is the formula for winning. And we're going to try to stop him. This is your moment.
And here's the thing about Carson Wentz that I think people are not realizing. So I was curious again, so I looked at it. Do you know how many times Carson Wentz threw from more than 250 yards last season in a single game?
What was it, like 2 times, 3 times?
4 times. That was it. 13 games, he was under 250, and 8 of those games, he was under 200. So
I'm sorry. I hate to interrupt, but yo, these memes are just, I'm looking at these memes right now on social media. I can't help it. It is.
I'm sure.
Listen, fellas, I got to ride out. I got a show tonight. Y'all already know. 10
Same. Got some stuff to do. Take care of yourselves, guys.
All right.
I'm going to holler at y'all, man.
Yeah. All right. Ray Lynn and I, we can finish up for another minute. Ray Lynn, it's you and I. Let's do this. I mean, I'll finish what I was saying. We can wrap this thing up. But, I mean, people are on Carson Wentz's case. He lost that game. Carson Wentz didn't just lose that game. Jonathan Taylor didn't run for enough yards. The team itself didn't play. But the truth of the matter is, Carson Wentz played like Carson Wentz from most of the season. And that was the point I wanted to make was he threw for under 250 yards, 13 out of the 17 games. And more importantly, 8 out of his 17. So almost a perfect right down the middle, 50% of the time. He threw for under 200 yards. So the truth of the matter was, this was no different for Carson. This was exactly what he does. The team just didn't adjust, didn't do the things they needed to do. The defense didn't do what they needed to do to stop a pitiful Jacksonville team, and they lost. And so I'm not saying Carson Wentz is a good quarterback, but to say he is the reason that they lost that game, I don't think that's true. I think Indy should have known. We need to get A, Jonathan Taylor over 100 yards, and B, we need to understand that Carson Wentz is only going to do so much. He's only going to pull so much weight because this is what he's done all season.
Again, I don't disagree with any of that. Like we agree that the formula was Jonathan Taylor, right? Like we agree that was the formula. It's kind of like Dallas a couple of years ago. It was like even before it was Zeke, and before him it was DeMarco Murray. It was like with Tennessee, we're going to give it to Derrick Henry 30 times a game. Some teams that's just the formula, right? But when you do have a situation where teams say we're going to stack 8 in the box, I think it's if you're a starting quarterback in this league, you have to be able to come through sometimes, don't you? Like if they've carried you to, especially considering
I agree.
how the media and fans judge quarterbacks on wins and losses. So if they make the playoffs, it'll be Carson Wentz led a team to the playoffs, even though he was really along for the ride, right? So in the one moment, it's like, hey, you could have came through and as a matter of fact, I'm looking, it was his lowest completion percentage. No, it wasn't. No, he's been bad all year.
He was. That's exactly my point. People, I don't think, realize how disappointing he was all season. This wasn't some revelation. This wasn't new. This was Carson Wentz most of the season, at least half of it. This was what he did. This was what Carson Wentz was.
So let me ask you a question. What happened? Right? Because if you go look, what happened to the guy that was 11-2 through 13 games and playing at an MVP level?
I think he lost his confidence. It's as simple as that. He got hurt. He took one bad hit. He's lost his confidence ever since, and he's never recovered in confidence. I think it's as simple as that. I think after that, he's not the same quarterback. He was afraid that he was going to get hurt again, and so he just, wasn't as confident in his own ability to make plays and do what he did that season. And you can see it. His stats have just been abysmal since. I mean, they've been not even close.
So, question for you. We said this after Aaron Rodgers. We said, will this be one of those things where it's one of them off seasons where all this hype and it's just smoke and mirrors and won't nothing happen? And since then, we've had 2, I'll say names move, right?
Yep.
Will we see more?
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm assuming we're counting like Jimmy G as a quote unquote name. Yeah. Then definitely, because Jimmy's gone. I think Jameis is a name to some extent, at least. He will be going, something will happen with him. He may very well re-sign, but I don't know that he's guaranteed to, especially with teams like Indy in the mix. I don't know. He could be absolutely. So yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that it's going to be as crazy as it's been the past 3 days, maybe, where we've had Aaron Rodgers, saying he's going back to the Packers, Russell Wilson, one of the best quarterbacks and biggest names in the league, moving. And then Carson Wentz, who is just a name at this point, but still is something, getting traded, right? He's moving. I don't think we're going to have that level of intensity, but I think there's still, things are going to still happen. There's Derek Carr's a free agent still. I mean, yeah, do I think he's going back to the Raiders? Probably, but he's still a free agent, and we have no idea what's going to happen with that. That's another name. So I think it's an interesting offseason to watch because it could be very boring. We could easily just see, Derek Carr goes back to the Raiders. We see Winston back to New Orleans, and then Jimmy maybe goes to the Colts, and that's kind of the end of all of this, and that's all the big moves. But we could also see the complete inverse, where we see, Jimmy is just the first of the, let's say, the next 3 or 4 dominoes yet to fall, including Winston, Derek Carr, even Matt Ryan. He's a name, and we don't know what's going on with him, right? There's potential for it to be big.
I'm genuinely interested to see if any team takes a flyer on Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that's I hadn't thought about it. That's a good point.
It just flies under the radar, and we kind of forget that guy is super talented and young, right? Like he's young and super talented. So
absolutely, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody took a flyer on him. Why not? I mean, it would be an interesting trade to see what happens, because it's like, okay, you might mortgage your entire future for this guy. And it's such a huge gamble because you have no idea. Everything may be fine. He plays by next year and everything's great. And whoever gets him reaps all the benefits of getting him. Or they may mortgage their entire future and get diddly squat because he never gets to play again. And you kind of forget about it. But you're right. That's a good point. I kind of forgot about him for a minute because of everything going on. He just kind of flies under the radar right now.
Yeah, he hasn't played.
Right.
So, yeah. I guess we'll see, man. When more news breaks, we will be right back here again, right?
You know it, absolutely. Look, I told you I missed yesterday on purpose because I wanted to save my thoughts and opinions for the show, which was last night. But hey, I mean, this week there could be more. I don't know. I didn't think there was going to be more news today. I figured, all right, Monday was and Tuesday were enough. Fine, this was it. We had enough for 1 week. Apparently, the NFL decided we're not done. We're going to keep going. We're going to push for as much content as possible, and I'm all for it.
And I really, man, I don't think it's going to slow down.
No,
that domino effect is real. When teams really think they have a chance to get in Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, I think that's why Denver went and got Russell Wilson so fast. Absolutely. They probably had their eyes on Aaron Rodgers, right?
And they saw he was going. He's like, got to move.
Right. So now, Washington looks at their team and go, we got that defense. I'm
telling you, Jimmy Garoppolo, right? I honestly think with the way things are going, I think he's traded by, what's today, Wednesday? He's gone by Saturday. I honestly
think that would be a huge mistake for the 49ers because Trey Lance not it.
I don't disagree because Jimmy Garoppolo proved to me this season that while he's not a perfect quarterback, he can still get it done. He did enough.
You know what?
Team played
he's not
well
a perfect quarterback, but he's a perfect quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, he's perfect.
You got him to the conference championship. You know what more do you want from him at this, right? You played not the conference championship. He did. Yeah, excuse me. He beat Aaron Rodgers in the divisional, even though he didn't do it, but he wins that game. That still goes as a W on his record, right? Mm-hmm. And then he plays Matt Stafford in the Rams, and the Rams they win the Super Bowl. So, all right, so you lose to the guys that end up winning the championship. I wouldn't be that upset. I'd be pretty happy. I'd be like, you know what?
Though,
I want to be better, but that's still a pretty good accomplishment.
But narratives, right? Like, so narratives drive sports, right? And the narrative surrounding Jimmy Garoppolo has always been he's a game manager. He's not like stupid, like he doesn't jump off the charts talent wise. Like his arm doesn't wow you, right? Yep. But he wins games.
He sure does.
But when you look at the 49ers, right? When you look at the defense and then you look at a Deebo Samuel, and you look at now they done plugged and played 3 different running backs that are all like, where did Elijah Mitchell come from last year, right? Like, so you look at these weapons they have on offense and you go, man, if they had a right, like you look at the last 2 years where teams went, man, if we had a quarterback and they went and got their quarterback and they won a Super Bowl. Tampa Bay looked at all the weapons they had and said, if we had somebody didn't throw 30 interceptions, right? And they go get Tom Brady. But along with that, they say, oh, now we're going to go get Gronk. We're going to get Fournette. We're going to get Antonio Brown. They win a Super Bowl. The Rams look at their team and say, we're going to go get Stafford. But not only that, now we're going to go get OBJ. We're going to get Von Miller, right? So they're going to get these quarterbacks, and then they're adding pieces. They're going all in on trying to win with these guys. San Francisco has to look at their team and say, why couldn't we do something like that?
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to throw out a crazy idea. We talked about Deshaun Watson. Maybe Deshaun Watson and Jimmy Garoppolo, a swap. I mean, there'll be picks involved, of course, but why not, right? We're seeing quarterback swaps in the last, we saw it yesterday. We saw a quarterback switch today. I mean, it wasn't an actual, yesterday was a literal quarterback swap. Russell Wilson and Drew Lock were both on the move. Today, we don't see that, but still we see another quarterback move. Why not? I mean, I think it's an interesting idea. I think the problem is I don't think they'll do it because I think they have too much faith in Trey Lance. But as somebody looking on from the outside in, I think that would be a genius trade.
It would make all the sense in the world, right?
Right. I mean,
yeah.
The way I see it is, if you like Trey Lance as much as you do, right? Trade Jimmy, get Deshaun Watson. Because if you get Deshaun Watson and he can play, that's a no-brainer. Deshaun Watson over most quarterbacks in the league, that you could trade for reasonably, right? I would take Deshaun Watson over a good amount of quarterbacks. He's a great player, and when he's on the field, he can be, as good as anybody. And with the talent on that team, he'd be amazing. Absolutely. If it doesn't work out, you don't have to go draft another quarterback, though. And that's the
already
thing.
Did.
But that's exactly what I mean, right? So they get to keep Trey Lance on the roster. What's the worst case scenario? Okay, we traded away Jimmy. We got Deshaun. It didn't work out. We still get to play, our guy Trey Lance that we wanted to start. If it works out in their favor, though, and Deshaun Watson does get to play and everything is all good, right? Think about that. Okay, we got Deshaun Watson starting. Now, why not? Let's just throw away Lance. We'll go trade him to someone else. I guarantee you there will be a team that will go out and buy him. I'm certain of that. Somebody will be quarterback desperate. Maybe not this year, but just at some point would be quarterback desperate and go get him. And you then have Deshaun Watson. You lock him up for quite a few years on whatever the contract may be, and you build a team that's going to be in contention for a Super Bowl for the next 5, 6, 7 years possibly with that core of players you have. There's no downside to doing that.
I agree 1,000%. And to respond to this comment, like if they love Lance, why would they bring in a star quarterback to waste money? You're not wasting money, right? San Francisco is built to win right now.
Yeah.
They're
already spending lots of money on Jimmy G anyway. Talking about wasting money.
You're built to contend right now. And Deshaun Watson is one of the most talented quarterbacks in this league. If you can get it, put it like this, with the guys that are on the market, any of those guys, if San Francisco had the opportunity to get Aaron Rodgers, they had the opportunity to get Russell Wilson, they can land a Deshaun Watson. You do it 100 times out of 100 because, again, fair or unfair, in the biggest moment of the season, how did San Francisco's season end? Like,
yeah, you're right.
You know, with the ball,
but they lost to another team that did just that. Went out and got one of those guys and said, "We're going to steal
not just
your
losing,
team and put on ours."
Not just the loss; it's how they lost.
Yeah,
Jimmy G had ball in hand with the opportunity to win the game.
But I'm just saying that the fact that they lost to a team that did exactly what we're talking about, right? Getting that guy that say, "This is the guy that improves our team and puts us over the hump." That says, "This is the guy that can lead us to the promised land, that can win us that championship."
Yes,
and they've got to see that and say the writing's on the wall. We just lost. Why can't we do the same thing? You're absolutely right. There's no reason they can't.
You mentioned his name earlier. I'll tell you an interesting name that people aren't talking about. And I think because the team is so bad now and we typically judge quarterbacks on wins and losses, if Matt Ryan finds himself in a new situation,
I could see Matt Ryan
see MVP level Matt Ryan again, right?
You could,
like if that was Matt Ryan on that San Francisco team.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Matt Ryan, put him in San Fran.
Yeah, that's
it's the same thing all over again because look what happened with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and how great that season was. Okay, but you do that, and now you've got even better. Now you've got George Kittle at tight end. You've got Deebo Samuel at whatever position you want to describe him as. You got Brandon Ayuk on probably the other side, we'll say, assuming Deebo's playing receiver at that moment. You got Elijah Mitchell in the backfield. So you are basically saying to Matt Ryan, okay, when you had your MVP season, who'd you have? Devonta Freeman. Okay, we give you Elijah Mitchell. Both great running backs in their own respect. Okay, you had a great receiver in Julio Jones. Okay, well, we give you Deebo Samuel, who can do it all, and he's a great receiver in his own respect. Oh, you had a pretty solid and good tight end back then, and you guys had a good connection in Austin Hooper. Well, guess what? We're giving you an upgrade now because now we're going to give you an even better, one of the greatest tight ends in the game currently, George Kittle. I didn't think about it until you said it, but you're right. It would also make sense because Matt Ryan's not a game manager. Matt Ryan will go out and he will win games. He will do it if you give him the right tools. I mean, Matt Ryan, his team doesn't win, but man, he puts up some solid stats continually because he's that guy. He's a strong quarterback. He's kind of like Matt Stafford, right? Stafford was a good quarterback for a long time, terrible team.
First off, I don't know if you know this, Jake, but like we gotta watch it when we start talking about my Lions, as long as you know, right? But no, Stafford is the perfect example, man. I've beat that drum for years that quarterbacks get way too much credit and way too much blame. You look at a perfect example is what happened in the second round of the playoffs this year, right?
Yep.
Headed to not the second round. Was it the conference championship games, right? Both the conference championship games on one side. For NFL, both conference championship games are the perfect example of why quarterbacks get too much credit and too much blame, right?
Yeah.
On one side, you have the weather factor in the game, and neither quarterback can get it going. And the game comes down to special teams, right? Both quarterbacks played awful. Somebody had to win that game, though. And then you go to the other game where both quarterbacks played phenomenal, and somebody had to lose. Josh Allen.
I think you're talking about the divisional round, though.
Was that the divisional round?
If you're talking about when it was Packers,
yes,
Niners, that was divisional. That was divisional because it was in Green Bay.
Packers, Niners. So second round then.
Gotcha.
Packers, Niners, and then on the other side that same weekend you have Buffalo, Kansas City, right?
Yep.
Where Josh Allen did everything right to win that game. Like
that was also the same week as Bucks Rams, wasn't it? That was the same week. Bucks Rams were also that weekend. So another example of that. Both quarterbacks played great.
Yes, and sometimes a quarterback can just stand there with his arms folded, watching another quarterback march down the field.
Yep, absolutely.
So where people get this idea of going back to Matt Ryan, where Atlanta's not winning games, so people forget how talented he is. We just saw it with Stafford. You put him in a different situation with some different weapons, and here he is, a Super Bowl champ. 1 year removed from being on the worst franchise in the history of sports. Right? I can say it because they my team. You take Matt Ryan off the Falcons and put him somewhere like San Francisco?
Absolutely. Matt Ryan wasn't perfect by any means, but he's got a painful team to beat. It's hard to be a Falcon now. So I feel bad for him because, the last 2 seasons haven't been what he can be, but it's because his team is not what it can be. But here's the thing I will tell you about Matt Ryan. He is extremely accurate. His completion percentage since 2010 has never dropped below 62% except for one season where it was 61.3. And I say that because he is, extremely accurate. And if I went through season by season, most of the time he's above like 65%. He's consistently like 66, 67, 68% of the time is just, that's his completion percentage. And
he's 65.5 for his career. So
and that's pretty good. That's a pretty accurate quarterback, right? He's also
top 10.
Part of his problem is why he hasn't performed as well. Let's look at 2018 to 2021. In all 4 seasons, he's been sacked 40 plus times each time. So the poor guy is under duress. So I'm telling you, if you put him on a team like San Francisco who can protect him, they can give him weapons, and they can give him an opportunity to win, forget about it. You could see Matt Stafford kind of, that same turnaround where all of a sudden you get to see, him truly shine. He's going to make his mistakes. He's not going to be perfect, but you can see him shine again and say, wow, this guy's pretty good. So I think that's another guy that people are going to forget about. I think there's plenty of options for both the Colts and San Fran. Either team could be in on a guy like Matt Ryan, and honestly could be a complete difference maker. I think a better fit for Matt Ryan would be San Fran, but if you put Matt Ryan on the Colts, he'd still be pretty good. He'd still have, I would think,
they got some weapons over there.
With Pittman and Taylor alone, just forget anything else. And that strong offensive line, I'm good. Because it would be the same thing he had when he was MVP season. He had one guy he truly trusted, Julio. He had a strong running back in Devonta Freeman when he had his MVP season. There you go. His line gave him time. And look what he did, right? And the Colts have a decent enough defense that they're not going to give up every single game where Matt Ryan isn't totally perfect, but Matt Ryan isn't going to have to do everything also because he'll score points, but his defense will do enough to not lose those games, right? And those games where Matt Ryan isn't perfect, his defense will probably help pick up the slack. And if they don't, Jonathan Taylor will be a guy that picks up the slack. So he's an interesting guy. I feel like he'll probably end up back in Atlanta, sadly, just
more
because
than likely.
That's where he's always been. And he's one of those guys, kind of like Matt Stafford, where he's a loyal guy. You know what? That's his team. Those are his fans. That's his city. He's just going to stick with it, ride it out. And I respect it. But, the idea of him somewhere else, you're right. It excites me. I get excited thinking about it. Oh, that'd be really fun to see that.
Yeah. So I guess, man, we'll just sit around and wait and see what more dominoes fall. And
like I said, I'm telling you, Jimmy G, by Saturday, it's Wednesday. I think by Saturday night, he's gone. By the end of Saturday, he will be moved to somewhere else because teams are going to be in a frenzy, freaking out, saying, okay, we got to get our quarterback. What do we do? They're freaking out right now.
And it's funny because I think at the start of the 2022 season, Jimmy G will be under center for San Francisco.
Yep. And now I think we both agree he's gone. If not,
no. I think he's going to stay in San Francisco.
You think so?
I don't think nobody wants him.
We'll see. I think Colts are the only team dumb enough to go get him. But as we've learned, they're not the smartest when they pick their quarterbacks. They had Carson Wentz and, just traded him after a year. So that says a lot about them.
Yeah.
All right. Real quick, shout out where people can find you, and then we'll wrap this up.
Hey man, I'm part of the family now. I'm not a guest no more. It's the sports reporter.
Yeah, we do this for everybody.
Sports Arena Monday nights at 10, Wednesday nights at 10. That's where you can find me all the time. Mondays and Wednesday nights, Sports Arena live at 10.
There you go.
You can also catch me and the Sideline Sports, like we all a family, 4:00 a.m. every day.
Yes, sir.
Roku TV, DBNA.
You are making appearances sometimes because you are on the Sports Arena, and Sports Arena is on TV. So hey, you can officially say you're on TV. I stayed up
the other night to 4 a.m. to watch. So
I've done the same. I've gone to sleep. I set an alarm. I'm like, all right, 4 a.m. I watch it. I gotta see it. It's the best feeling. Trust me.
Yes, man, it is.
All right. Well, thank you, sir, for coming on. We appreciated it. It was great, and I'm telling you, if there's more breaking news, we'll be right back here.
Absolutely.
To anybody watching, thank you if you've watched to the end, and we'll We'll see you probably in a couple days, is my guess.